Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Retno Ristiase Utami and my partner Purwanintya Stuti. We are from Faculty of Psychology, Semarang University. We will present our research, emotional stabilization training to improve the psychological well-being of prisoners. Background of the problem. Various problems that occur in prisons, including overcapacity of prisoners or convicts in prisons, inadequate prison facilities, lack of prison guard or officers, as well as violence and security problems in prisons. Prison overcapacity occurs in Indonesia or Central Java, based on data from the Directorate General of Correction in 1994. The four major impacts of imprisonment for individuals are loss of liberty, loss of autonomy, loss of security, and loss of heterosexual relationship. These negative conditions that are felt can influence the prisoner's view of himself, other people, and the surrounding environment. In other words, it will affect both of physical and psychological condition of a prisoner. This experience is very likely to cause a low condition of psychological well-being. The complexity of these psychological problems has a big influence on the psychological well-being of prisoners, which becomes low. It seems that the psychological well-being of prisoners in prison is not paid attention to. This is due to the lack of mental health facilities in prisons. Routine activities held in prison only focus on religion, hobbies, and skills. This research aims to determine the effect of emotional stabilization training on increasing the psychological well-being. Psychological well-being is a condition characterized by individuals being able to make their own decisions, being able to control their own behavior, being able to organize and create a harmonious environment, having a purpose in life, and trying to develop themselves. According to Reeve, psychological well-being consists of the following dimensions: being able to accept yourself as you are, have independence or the ability to make the right decisions for themselves, able to make good life plans, direction, and goals for the future, can organize and create an environment that is appropriate to what is required, have the ability to develop personal potential, and can build positive relationships with other people. Emotional stability or maturity is a condition where an individual is able to exercise self-control over the outburst of emotional expression he experiences, so that he can handle everything he encounters well. Someone who has good emotional stability will be able to understand what he is feeling and express it appropriately. The emotional stabilization training given to respondents is based on the individual's ability to recognize their emotions and carry out emotional regulation, as well as being aware of reality to be able to evaluate their behavior. Training provided in 3 sessions consisting of deep breathing technique training session, recognizing emotion session, and accepting and facing reality session. Research method, we use quasi-experimentation. This research was conducted at the 1A class of Semarang Correctional Institution and the 2A class of Semarang Women's Correctional Institution. The criteria for respondents are adult prisoners who obtain a psychological well-being scale score below average, willing to be a respondent, indicated by signing a statement of willingness, stay in prison for a minimum of 3 months after the adjustment or orientation period, and not illiterate. The instrument used in this research was the psychological well-being scale, training room, and an emotional stabilization training module. Research plan and design use the one group pretest post-test design, namely an experimental design involving one group of subjects. The experimental group is given an initial test and a final test. Psychological well-being data was taken using the psychological well-being scale based on Reeves theory, which has been adapted by Rilati, based on the dimension of self-acceptance, positive relationship with other people, mastery of the environment, personal growth, autonomy and purpose in life. The items were declared valid, and the Alpha-Cronbach reliability coefficient of the psychological well-being scale is 0.805. Data analysis used pair sample t-test to determine whether there was a difference in psychological well-being scores in the experimental group before and after training. Independent sample t-test analysis to determine whether there is a difference in the scores of the pre-test and post-test of psychological well-being for male prisoners. The result for female prisoners. The result of the pair sample t-test show that there is no difference in the psychological well-being of female prisoners respondents before and after training, so that the alternative hypothesis is not accepted, and emotional stabilization training is less effective in improving the psychological well-being of female prisoners. The result for the pair sample for male prisoners show that there is a difference in the psychological well-being of male prisoners respondent before and after training, so that emotional stabilization training is effective in improving the psychological well-being of male prisoners. The result for male and female prisoners, that's for the difference test of Mann-Whitney test is used, which shows the result that there are differences in psychological well-being scores for male and female prisoners, where male prisoners have better psychological well-being than female prisoners after the training is carried out, so that emotional stabilization training is more effectively applied to male prisoners. The psychological well-being of men and women does show unequal levels. According to research by Matut, women score higher in the dimension of personal growth and positive relationship with other people, while men higher scores in the dimensions of self-acceptance and This experiment was carried out on two groups of male and female prisoners separately to control for gender variables that influence psychological well-being. The stabilization training provided is more effective when applied to male prisoners than to female prisoners. The process of carrying out experiments control variables that are expected to pollute the internal validity of the experiment, such as giving the pre-test 1 month before the experiment to minimize the effect of testing in the post-test of the experiment, because the measuring instruments used are the same. The weakness of this experimental design is that there is no control group, so there is no comparison to find out whether the effect of emotional stabilization training on increasing the psychological well-being of prisoners is strong. Conclusion of the research: emotional stability training is effective for improving the psychological well-being of male prisoners, but less effective for improving the psychological well-being of female prisoners. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.